We're live.
Are we live? Let's see here.
All right, guys, welcome to the Merry Boozers RC channel. Today we're going to be talking about, since we were talked about so much on Captain Mike and Ryan's show last night, about patches and how I started this patch thing, and maybe give you a little insight to how it came about back a long time ago. That's what we'll start on. Why did I start it? Why did I was interested in even doing these patches in the first place? So, as you know, our channel is named Merry Boozer, which was the airplane my father flew on, a B-24, in the Central Pacific during World War II. He was with the 7th Air Force, with the 30th Bomb Group, with the 392nd Bomb Squadron, which all that means is he started with, this is the original patch. His original patch, that is authentic.
Yeah, the neat thing, guys, that is actually the patch off of his jacket that flew in the war.
Yep. So, back in the early 90s is when they started reproducing A2s, or when I really was seeing that the A2s were being reproduced. So instead of wanting to use that patch, I wanted to reproduce that patch. So I started researching out the material it was made of, how to paint it, what kind of paint to use, and I finally come out with the idea to reproduce one of the patches, which is behind Wesley.
If you want to come
The
over
original patch that I reproduced was on that A2 jacket, which is now, I did that maybe in 1994 or 5.
here. If you want to kind of go over again and show them the actual patch.
And another deal I did, I decided I wanted to save one in a frame. So up here on the board, up here on the top, is actually another patch I reproduced with the 24, with the 7th Air Force, so and so, so forth.
Well,
so you
like we
could
said,
do that with a patch.
There they are, right beside
There you
each
go.
other.
Here you go. You can put them side by side, and of course you can tell a little aging with the old one. But with that said, that started my interest on the patches. So I wanted to learn more about squadrons and what their patches looked like. There was no internet at the time. You got to remember, 1992, no internet. You had to do everything the hard way, go to libraries or research. So I thought about calling the Air Force. So what I did was I started with the Air Force. I think I went to the closest air base to me at the time was Dice Air Force Base in Abilene, Texas, and called their information officer. He told me that all that information had been sent to Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama, which I guess today that still exists. If you're going to want to do any research on these squadron patches or anything like that. So I wrote to the information officer at Maxwell Air Force Base, and he came back and said, yes, there's 2 books that actually exist. These 2 books are available through the Air Force as far as research on the squadron. Well, it actually is for the Air Force, like 8th, 7th, 15th, 20th Air Force. Then it breaks it down in the groups. Then it breaks it down in the squadrons. The first book over there will actually be the Air Forces and the groups. And the second book will actually be for the squadrons and the patches. So, if you look at this book here, and you open up to anywhere in it, it's going to give the information as far as the patch that was known at the time, or what they have on record. That doesn't mean that this is actually correct. It just means that's what they knew at the time, that when they printed this book. You can see the 334th Fighter Squadron was the one that I gave to Pilot whoever
Pilot Ryan.
Pilot Ryan last night. That was the Eagle Squadron. So this is something that you've seen last night. Just happened to put, but it tells about the lineage of when they started the fighter group. Like it says, this one was activated on 12 September 42, inactivated on November 45. Then it comes down here, it tells the assignments where they were assigned to. They actually tell where the stations they were stationed at. And then it comes up here and what it tells where they actually were at during the war at each base. Then it comes down and tells exactly what aircraft they were flying at a particular time for years. Like the first one is Spitfire from 42 to 43. Then they transitioned from P-47s to 43 and 44 and so on. So all that, and then it tells of any kind of campaign ribbons they might have won. And then the last thing it tells you of is the emblem, which tells you something about this emblem here and maybe possibly the colors it is, since this is not in color.
Right. We actually just had a question of how does he determine the color of the patch?
The color of the patch is either by this book or today the good news is that a lot of these patches are online. You can look them up.
The real ones, the authentic
real
ones.
But the problem is there was so many patches reproduced by so many people that I found out that maybe one manufacturer would make one patch one color, one would make it another. So it's kind of a hit or miss as far as my representation of what I read, or by seeing it on the internet. And sometimes I just shoot from the hip, guys, to be honest with you. So
right.
Anyway, we did the research. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I kind of want to see if Lori could come in here and maybe we could go through a couple of these now, so you guys can see some of the reproduced ones up close and kind of get a look at what
the ones in the back. Okay, so since there was no internet back in 1992, I had some reference books, but I didn't have this one, so there was no way to. So I started drawing the patches just like this. That's just a pencil drawing that I did. I'd look at this book and draw it out to the size of this patch, and then it would come out and look like that. Okay, so there's that to this. So that's how that started, of me reproducing patches. Of the first ones were, okay, so I take that patch and it says down here, and on the back of it, what I do is this is a 532nd Bombardment Group, which is, anytime it says bombardment, that means it's bombers. And it says there, this particular group only flew B-17s from 42 to 45. Then they disbanded this group and it never was. Some of these groups keep going through the years, just so they might have started at World War II. Some of the groups started in World War I. Okay, it'll tell you all that in here. So some of these disbanded, like this one was, that particular group was no longer used after World War II. But there are some that keep going. Of course, you have fighter groups, you have reconnaissance groups, you have troop transport groups. Okay, so let's take, everybody knows a fighter group with the Flying Tigers, okay?
P-40s.
P-40s. It's the AVG Flying Tigers. There's a lot of these, but that's that. So something like a fighter group. Then you have, I know that this one is a medium bomber, like B-25s, B-26s. Well, here it is. It's the 43rd Bombardment. They flew B-26s from 42 to 45. Then they transitioned to B-29s from 52 to 53. A B-47, 53, a B-47 from 53 to 60. So there's one that keeps going. But medium bombers, kind of. Then we...
A quick close-up of the Flying Tigers.
Oh, okay.
There you go, Dave.
again, this is my color selection. So, okay, so we went. Now we're going to talk about a troop transport. Even though this kind of looks a little weathery, but this is actually a troop transport. We'll turn it over to the back. It's the 77th Troop Carrier, and it was used C-53s from 43 to 45, C-47 43 to 46, la la la. So here we go with that. So that's what a troop transport looks like. Another troop transport is this one right here. You can kind of tell that it's dropping parachutes and stuff like that, but this is actually the leather patch. And then we turn it over, and it was a 12th Troop Carrier, and you can see that they flew C-47s from 42 to 45 and on through. But this one actually did the Berlin airlift, so a lot of things there. Then you go, I don't have a reconnaissance one that I've actually made. So the reconnaissance is kind of looks like these. Here's an interesting one here. This patch is a bombardment patch. It is actually the patch that the Memphis Belle would have used. Okay, even though it's wrong in the motion picture, kind of wrong, kind of right. Here's that. Some are right, nothing's wrong. This was actually, it's actually the 324th Bombardment Group, and this is actually the early World War II patch. They did change it, but B-17's 42 to 45, and then it keeps on going. But this would be the Memphis Belle. Another interesting patch. This patch here was worn in the Doolittle's Raiders. Now the Doolittle Raiders was not one squadron, okay? The Doolittle asked for volunteers to go on that raid. So when they volunteered, they were from multiple squadrons. This just happens to be one of them. This one is, there's a man named Cole, Richard Cole. He is the last surviving member of the Doolittle Raiders. He is 102 years old. That's his signature right there. I thought it'd be interesting to put Mr. Cole. He was actually Jimmy Doolittle's, this is actually Jimmy Doolittle's co-pilot. So he was from this particular squadron, which I don't have it on the back. I'm sorry I didn't put that on there. But Mr. Cole was actually in this particular squadron. Fighter squadrons. Here's a good fighter squadron one right here. It's kind of interesting. I liked it because it looks kind of cool. But here goes a fighter squadron. Oops, sorry. 311th Fighter. They threw P-39s and 42, P-40s from 42 to 43, P-47s 43 to 45. So if you wanted a P-47 or a P-40, here it is.
So real quick, I'm going to break in.
Yeah, here we go.
So as he was talking about, they would use different ones from time to time. This was the original Memphis Belle patches that they actually flew during the war was this one. Later on in the war, they actually switched to this one, which we haven't had a chance to reproduce yet. But just to show you, sometimes there would be a different one for each guy.
If like my father's patch here, if I looked up his particular squadron, it does not show that in that book. Now, why do I know this? I actually called a person that was the guru back in the 90s that was at the Smithsonian, and I asked him the same question. I said, why does the book not agree with what I have? He said, that's because sometimes the squadrons wanted their own patch over and above the one that was approved, so they could get this made. So that's how this kind of, and the bad news, guys, is a lot of this history is lost. That might be the last patch that exists of that particular time and that particular squadron. So if you run into these things, don't throw them away, because you've got actually history in your hand. And the man at the Smithsonian says, Mr. Miller, please do not throw that patch away. If you do anything with it, either send it to us or send it to some museum. At the time, I was real close. I lived about 60 miles from Midland, Odessa, which the Confederate Air Force at that time, I'm not trying to be nasty, but at that time it was the Confederate Air Force. Later on it went to the Commemorative Air Force. But at that time in the early 90s, it was the 50th anniversary of World War II, and they were doing a lot, the beautiful stuff as far as the bombers and large, and that's what started me on this kind of thing. So, with that said,
real quick too.
Yeah, okay.
Here's a picture of the actual patch, and then, like I said, our reproduced version of it.
If I have the right paint, the right kind of information here, then I'm going to be as correct as I can be. Now, if I don't, there's not anything, then it's going to kind of be an artist interpretation of what I can find. I'll try to be as correct as possible. Now, that being said, different sizes. The size is kind of a controversy too. So it's into my interpretation as far as the size. Of course, I know what size it is. If I have an original, don't have to guess. I can tell you that's 100%. But if you order one, if in the future we decide to order these, put these online for sale, I will put a disclaimer in there that I am doing the best I can to reproduce the patch. So, any questions, guys, that you might have? I'm going to tell you a little bit about, we did the patches. What we've done is, if you guys were with us, we have modeled a B-24 of the Boozer. If you guys want to model a particular, if you find a nose art on an airplane that you would really like to do, then you're going to have to do some artwork to be able to send it to Cali Graphics to get her to reproduce it. Give you an idea. We showed this on another video. But here's how you do, if you want to do okay, you remember the B-24 my father flew over was the Mary Boozer. This was the artwork of the Boozer. So what we wanted to do is I did this a long time ago. This is actually all on canvas. I wanted to kind of reproduce it. So we had this. So we took a picture of this and sent it to Callie, and she did that. That's a little bit different. The Boozer was actually painted. It wasn't chrome. It wasn't aluminum, so it was actually painted olive drab. But the artwork came out a little bit better with this type of color. Leading to, we in the future will possibly do T-shirts for you guys if you're interested in the Boozer shirts. And it's, maybe you want to say I'm a Boozer. We're going to put that on the front or the back and say I'm a Boozer. We'd love to have you guys as far as followers on our YouTube page and things that we do. So this is just another thing to take I've always loved aircraft. I've always loved the World War II stuff, I guess because my dad was in it. But this is just another way, if you have an A2, to kind of enjoy. You've seen Mike out there wearing his A2. Wesley's got one. I've got one. That was mine originally. I gave that to Wesley. A2s last for, if you take care of them, the A2 will last forever. So there's another patch that I made. This is the Boozer patch.
This is getting pretty old, but you'll see they'll wear over time.
But the funny thing is, guys, I can fix this patch.
Yep.
But that this one's older than that one. But Wesley wore that jacket a lot. So,
Actually, a little zoom in over here. Okay.
So you know kind of how this all started. It was an interest of mine just to reproduce a patch. And then it was gratifying for me to do that one, so I decided to do another one. Now, saying that, you can take your interest another level. As you've seen this picture up here that I reproduced and put it in a frame, that's actually the leather patch. It's actually a leather 7th Air Force. But then here I go again. Here's another one over here. It was one of my favorite P-51 squadrons. And everybody knows PD2. And on the side of it, it has this, that's actually the squadron patch on the side of the PD. So there's just another way to enjoy your artwork. Or if in the future I decide to start selling these patches, instead of putting it on A2, you could take it to your framer and have him do something like this. All you got to do is find a pen and ink. You can find these online, these pen and ink pictures. Real nice artwork. And do something like that. I mean, it's if you like this kind of stuff to put in your hobby room or something. So, anyway, I think that's about it for the patches.
We're going to take about a 10-minute break, guys, and get everything moved out of here so we don't get paint on any of this as we're painting the T-45. I know a lot of you have been asking where it is. It's coming up next. We're going to close this video out so on the YouTube channel we can have one just for the patches. And then here in a few minutes, we're going to have another live video come up. And it's going to be the T-45, and we're going to paint it, dirty it. We're going to put rivets on it and get that ready for you.
And we will make a decision very shortly to whether we will put these out for sale or not.
Yep.
I'm going to say possibly it will exist.
We're trying to figure out how to market them and how to sell them because it takes him time to make these. It's not something that we're going to be making hundreds of these every week or anything. This is going to be a very limited production.
This patch here took 2 days. Okay. Now, multicolors. This patch here took me 3 hours. So, I mean, it depends on how
difficult
detailed they are and how many colors and how long it takes me to do them. So, anyway, if you like what we're doing, like and subscribe to the Mary Boozer's channel. We're trying to give you multiple things to think about, guys, and things
and
to
the
enjoy.
History to actually go with it.
Yeah.
You know, I know I keep teasing it. We actually have some very neat stuff just to show you. This was the issued watch. There you go. This was actually my grandfather's watch that was issued to him in World War II. This actually flew all over.
There's
where
some
was
writing
it?
on the back.
Yeah.
It's hard to read it.
It's Watham.
A Watham watch. There you go.
Look how small it is, guys. It's not. Here's a one, but look how small it is compared to my watch. It's pretty close, but I don't wear one of them big divers watches like all you young guys do. But look how small it is. But watches in those days were not everyday things. Most men wore pocket watches. So during the war, that is when the wristwatch became very popular. So anyway, just a little bit more history about that. Like I say, like and subscribe. We'll get back to you, and we enjoy you being here.
We'll be back on in about 10 minutes, guys.
All right, guys, we're going to be back. Yeah, like they all said, we're going to be back in about 10 minutes. Another live video coming up.
We'll be painting that T-45 for you.
Thanks. We're going to figure out how to end this now.